This week on Capitol Report, remembering Joe Lieberman.
I think people liked him. They knew he was a man of integrity, with great conviction.
Stand up for people. That's what he did. He was a ferocious advocate.
Plus, Governor Lamont urges lawmakers to approve a bill that helps improve the financial stability of Connecticut hospitals.
This is an early warning system.
More aggravation over the delays for fully implementing the state's clean slate law.
There is really no such thing as delayed justice. There is really only denied justice.
And if Connecticut uses speed cameras on the highways, they might want to avoid ticketing New Jersey drivers.
It is one of the biggest scams put forward on the people of this country.
Your Easter Sunday edition of Capitol Report starts now. Welcome to Capitol Report. I am Tom Dudchick. We are so glad you're spending part of this Easter Sunday alongside the panel in their Easter finery, the great mayor of the city.
Happy Easter. Bloomfield,
Connecticut. I had to think for a quick second there. The coach, the former speaker, Joe Lieberman.
How are we going to do this one? Good morning.
And Johnny Mack is back.
Don't think meat.
Don't say it. All right, guys, let's get into it. Hey, they don't make them like Joe Lieberman anymore. Connecticut and a nation lost a political giant last week. Lieberman ascended the political ladder from the state legislature to attorney general to the U.S. Senate to becoming the first Jewish candidate on a national party ticket when Al Gore made him his running mate in 2000. Lieberman got so close to the vice presidency that he could taste it, what might have been if not for a few hanging chads in South Florida. In both politics and life, Lieberman was old school, from his strict observance of religious law to his strong convictions about his political beliefs. He crossed the party lines and ditched parties altogether when he became an independent. Most recently, he became the leader of the No Labels movement to seek out a candidate other than President Biden and Donald Trump. When it gets down to this, he was a man who was far from being just an ordinary Joe. So, guys, let's talk about what Joe meant for Connecticut and beyond. Joe Lieberman, you probably knew him best as a Democrat.
I did know him. And if you look at his whole body of work, there's a lot to be proud of. I know people quibble over certain things that he did, but he took positions that were consistent with who he was. His body of work is absolutely astounding, what he was able to do, not only here in the state of Connecticut, but when he went down to D.C. and then when he got out of politics. Just truly respect him.
Yeah, and Joe Lieberman was very smart, knew policy inside and out, and really was one of the moral conscience of the United States Senate. Remember, he was the first person to stand up and talk publicly about Bill Clinton's affairs and how that was problematic. He never wavered from what he believed in. I just want, on a personal level, I was never on the Lieberman team. I was with Weicker in '88 and other races. He would always talk to me, and you meet a lot of people in life, especially politics. They say, "Hey, how you doing?" It's kind of like reflexive. When Joe Lieberman asked you how you were doing, he really meant, I want to know how you're doing because I care about you. He always checked in on my mom, asked about her, helped her with her work on HIV and AIDS, and just genuinely a really good person. So as a person, my heart goes to Hadassah and his family. We're going to miss him. As a country, we need more Joe Liebermans in politics, not less.
I was pretty young when he was in his height in office, transitioning from high school to college and things of that nature. But everything that I've heard about him is I admire his independent streak and his ability to work in a bipartisan way. And while I haven't been on the same page from a policy standpoint with the gentleman, he is by all means a decent man, and we need more decency in politics, for sure.
I'll also say this. I had the opportunity to work with the senator's staff a lot. My first job out of college, I worked in Governor Rell's Washington, D.C. office, and I know you are all tired of hearing me talk about BRAC, the base realignment and closure, but that was obviously a big deal. And his staff was integral in making sure that we had the resources we need to fight that as a state. And I'll also say it was a time right after 9/11, we were putting Homeland Security block grants together, and Connecticut was in a unique position because of our proximity to Boston and to New York. We were first responders, and his team was so working together to try and make sure that Connecticut got what we needed. And today, and especially, I've been thinking a lot about his chief, Clarine Nardi-Riddle, at the time when I was working with the governor. I'll also say when I was at the state party as a Republican. Chris Healy, who's got a big personality, sent the senator a Republican membership card following a difficult primary, and the senator actually came and spoke to our delegation at the McCain convention. Wow. So to the point of bipartisanship, he was really truly an American leader, and we will miss him a great deal.
Guys, who's closest to a Lieberman in Connecticut politics today?
That's a great question. Wow.
Ned Lamont.
Yeah,
Ironically,
Ironically,
Ned Lamont.
yeah.
I mean, Ned Lamont is a leader who, much like Joe Lieberman, cares about people and is just willing to say what he believes. And you can disagree with him and still be friends and still have conversations.
I was going to say John McKinney.
Me too.
There you go. All right, guys. So Governor Lamont is backing a bill that would require hospitals to report more detailed financial information to the state. This is an effort to better identify potentially troubled hospitals. This comes as the state approves a plan finally allowing Yale New Haven Health to buy Prospect Medical Holdings. This would be a first step towards keeping the doors open at Waterbury Hospital, Rockville General, and Manchester Memorial Hospital. Watch this.
Yale New Haven has signed off on it. It makes a big difference in terms of folks there, holds down costs over a period of time, ties it to the benchmark. Yale is on board with this. Now is the time for Prospect to come to the table and make the deal. I think it's time for this transaction to take place.
So Yale New Haven Health, Hartford Healthcare, and Stanford Hospital all opposed the legislation. Guys, this took a long time to get this certificate of need done. I mean, it's over a year, well over a year. I mean, we need some changes in the process, don't we?
We do, and I think one of the biggest red flags that comes out of this is the nonprofit companies holding these hospitals. Prospect did nothing more than just bleed all the financial resources out of it, didn't live up to its financial obligations in both taxes and the local taxes, and then they put it on the market as a sign of desperation and was begging for the state to come in to make the deal happen. I'm glad we've pared all that back. I'm glad the money coming out from the state isn't nearly going to be as much, but I know, Liz, we're unsure what that dollar amount is right now.
Right. Well, I think that's the big issue, right? I mean, Prospect alone owes $114 million in tax, in the hospital tax, and that certainly is not part of the governor's budget. Yale or who is not going to cover that cost, and I think it also underscores a big issue with Medicaid reimbursement. The Medicaid population is growing, and in Connecticut you get between 62 and 67 cents on the dollar in Medicaid reimbursement, and that is a huge issue that all of the hospitals are facing, and it's going to continue to snowball and be a bigger issue.
Yeah, some of the things that I've heard, you know, in relation to bringing it on kind of a service level, what's going to happen to the hospital? You know, where's it going and who's going to take it over and where are people going to go for service and care? And so those are some of the concerns that, you know, a lot of residents have around the area, because if you don't have the major services in a distance or a proximity that is easy to get to, what happens? Where are people going to go? So I really want us to also think about that from a state. Where are these folks going to go to get these medical services? Are they going to have to travel to go to urgent care? Are there going to have to be more establishments for Medicare or medical services to be in-house or closer? So we have to address that too.
Yeah, and this is the world we live in, with hospitals always merging and merging and merging into bigger and bigger entities. Look, I credit the governor and his people for doing a lot of work on this. It's been a long time coming. Too long, probably. They're frustrated about how long it's taken. But once they get this over the finish line, my only comment to them is on to the next one. Now it's time to deal with the Yukon Hospital situation.
All right, guys. So a few months back, Governor Lamont announced plans to fully implement the state's clean slate law to erase some 80,000 low-level convictions. But so far, it hasn't been the case. State officials blame delays on problems with the data systems, along with outstanding legal and policy questions for holding the full rollout. Seeing the original clean slate law was passed all the way back in 2021. Many feeling frustrated. Watch this.
How many times are we going to have data and IT issues? Right. But we wouldn't have known that if we hadn't pressed the administration for more information. Right. And what do those fathers get? There's been no real public notice, and definitely no apology. The delay in implementing Clean Slate, which became law in 2021, is unacceptable and inexcusable.
This has been affecting my housing and my job career, and I can't move forward in my life because of the record.
I think I'm going to use that excuse at home. Data and IT issues. That's what it is, guys. Well, what do you think? Come on.
I mean, I think this is one of the issues that Republicans raised when this bill was being considered, right? And I think if they had listened to Republicans and incorporated this, the Republicans in the legislature were proposing that this be through an application process, which would have cut down on the administrative red tape, which would have cut down on the issues that we're seeing right now, and it would have put the folks in charge of their own destiny as opposed to letting the government be in charge.
Yeah, this is justice delayed. This is horrendous. 2 years too late. People want answers. People were promised that their records would be clean and expunged. And we need to put the resources around the administrative services, whether it's data collection or whether it's implementation of a application or the bureaucracy of it all. We need to address it. As a state, we are frustrated, right? We know that we can allocate resources to things that we want to prioritize. We should have done this, figured it out when the policy rolled out 2 years ago. We had hiccups on the first year. We needed to address it. We understand that systems need to talk to each other and data needs to collaborate, and we need to make sure that people get these expunged records across the board in all of the different industries and systems so people can go to work, they can get their rent approved, they can be employed and create a decent living. But if the state does not prioritize these things, they're failing the people, so they need to get it together.
Yeah, I think people are right to be frustrated, but I honestly, I think the blame is when they passed it, they overpromised. And they should have known this was going to be very complicated and not something that you can just click a button on a computer and erase, right? And so I think people were overpromised, and they should be right to be frustrated, but their anger should be back at what they were told when it originally passed. To Liz's point, if people had to apply, a lot of people would have been cured already, but I think the legislature probably knew that if it was an application process, a lot of people were never going to know about it and not apply. So I think there was kind of a little tough call.
And that happens with a lot of bills, and the governor is frustrated by this himself. I talked to him briefly about it. A lot of frustration, wants to get to the bottom of it, but it was the rollout and just not having the proper plan in place.
All right, guys. Up next on Cap Report, a look at how Connecticut is doing when it comes to its pension fund investments. Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, our pal from the Yale University School of Management, is here to give us some new insights. Stick around. Don't go away.
Protect state pensions.
Pensions, right? Yale School of Management's Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, Steve Tyen, and their team found that Connecticut's returns on its pension fund investments were among the worst in the nation. Their analysis of all 50 states offered some avenues for improvement, and so last week Sonnenfeld testified before an informational forum of the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee. Jeff joins us this morning to tell us how our pension investments are finally on track. The only guy on this set who's been banned in Russia. McKinney's next on the list, I hear, huh, Jeff? Hey, Jeff, so how did your report compare with your findings from last year?
Yes, I do top Putin's hate list, but thank you very much. Hopefully this won't match that. As you know, we had about 20 really devoted economic whizzes studying things last year. And look at all the economic performance triumphs in the state. Yet the one thing we couldn't celebrate, as we discovered, was the pension management was scraping the bottom of the barrel. It was, you know, on a 3-year, 5-year, 25-year basis, with all the expertise that this state has in asset management, we were at just about the worst or the second worst. This year, things have improved enormously. I think the Treasurer, Eric Russell, Ellen Schuman, the Chairman of the Investment Advisory Council, deserve big applause for, instead of being second worst in the nation, last year they soared to be right just above middle of the pack, and good for them. It's very smart things, getting out of some of these Chinese equities and things. This state missed the biggest bull run of U.S. equities in history, and that was a shame. And we've had an awful lot of underperforming asset managers kept on board, and they're addressing that now as they have a process we hope, for pruning some of them. So I think we've come a very long way, and we're so lucky to have this treasurer.
And Jeff, for the average person in Connecticut who's watching this day who's not a policy wonk, why is all this important? Why should they all care?
It matters a lot because we've had to transfer just in the last handful of years $8 billion of taxpayer revenue just to try to make it whole, to pay the pension obligations we have, and that's still not enough. Still, every sanitation worker, every police officer, every firefighter, every school teacher is still getting docked another 2% of their salaries to pay retired workers because our Treasury still hasn't been able to, meet its obligations, and that's really just awful. And that, of course, it drives businesses from wanting to have, or taxpayers to want to stay in the state. So this matters, but it's really taxing in a regressive way our own state workers.
And Jeff, what needs to be done to label this mission accomplished?
A lot of things still need to be done, which is a challenge. We need an independent advisory council. We're only 2 states. North Carolina is the only state that performs worse than we do, that has all the responsibility in one person. There's no check and balance, no board of directors the way every other state has, or a corporation or governments have. So that council has to have some teeth. Also, they need to report their findings. They have to have an auditor that goes to the legislature and perhaps to the comptroller as well. So you don't just hire your own consultant to give you the report card. And there's some other things like that. I think they need to start pruning some of they still have dozens of way underperforming asset managers making money with excessive fees. They're hiring other people to do their work for them, these fund-to-fund managers, and they're paying fees on that, as well as paying fees on money that's not even being invested. No state does that kind of thing. So, and we keep changing the goalposts too. Always a different standard. The MSCI or the S&P 500 or the Russell 2000 or now some crazy consultant's report that is not even accurate. So they need to have the same goalposts. They have this apples and oranges issue that's coming off like fruit juice.
Yale School of Management, our pal, Jeff Sonnenfeld. Happy Easter to you, Jeff. See you soon. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Up next on Cal Report, New Jersey, get this, trying to create a law that allows their drivers to say, forget about it if they get a ticket in another state from a speeding or red light camera. We'll explain when we get back. Don't go away in this one. Forget about it. Last year, Connecticut running a pilot program that put speed safety cameras on certain highway locations around the state, while places like New Haven looking to establish red light and speeding cameras at 19 locations across the city. There's been a lot of debate about this across the country, and get this, guys, New Jersey recently banned the use of so-called automated enforcements, and now one of the Garden State's lawmakers is proposing legislation to protect Jersey drivers who get ticketed by those cameras in other states. Here's what Senator Declan O'Scanlan had to say about that, don't you know? Watch this.
If Connecticut or any other state hasn't done its homework or got it wool pulled over its eyes and is instituting this government-sanctioned theft, there's no reason, and New Jersey doesn't impose that on Connecticut drivers. We do. We all have police on the road. They write traffic tickets, and people have to pay those. We have reciprocity. Very fair. But for what is essentially government-sanctioned theft that New Jersey doesn't inflict on drivers of other states, there's no reason why we should be complicit.
Well, that's pretty interesting, guys. McKinney, what do you think? I mean, we're talking about it off camera.
Well, the civil libertarian in me doesn't like traffic cameras, period.
Sure.
Secondly, we were just down in the Philadelphia area, and I looked down how fast I was driving on the New Jersey Turnpike, and I'm like, boy, I'm going fast. I was getting run over.
Yeah, sure.
People fly down in Jersey, so good for him. I don't know that his bill is going to work, but...
And slippery slope when states start meddling in banning this and banning that between 2 states when states regionally are supposed to cooperate.
Yeah, and you'd like to have that. I think that is the best of all worlds. Other state drivers come through our state and they get tickets and they don't pay it. We rely on the other states to be our partners. But to call it government-sponsored theft is a little far. It's not like they're walking into your house, hey, you happen to cut through Connecticut, we're taking your money. No, you did something wrong. Running red lights, speeding, going through the work zone.
Zones on 95.
I mean, people are getting hurt and killed by these drivers' actions. We need to get together and work on it. It's a lot.
Well, Danielle, as one of the few mayors at this table, the only mayor, what do you think about Bloomfield traffic cameras, not red light cameras? You thought about it?
Yes, we are thinking about it. You know, the biggest component is the equity component and who it's going to disenfranchise or disproportionately impact. So those are really the thoughts behind this. But traffic is a growing issue in all communities. It's the highway. We need to do something about it, whether that's enforcement or whether that's looking back at the current law that we have to make some adjustments to make it work, or partnering with our surrounding state DMVs to make sure that we talk to each other effectively, but, you know, protect our residents at the same time is still kind of the ball's in the air right now.
I think it goes to the constitutionality of the red light cameras and to your point about being a civil libertarian. I mean, I don't support the red light cameras. I think we do need more police. And I think that more police will deter people much more so than cameras will. And as we know in Connecticut, our state trooper ranks have fallen very far behind where they need to be. And I think if we want safer roads in Connecticut, we need more state troopers.
All right, well,
Slow down, people.
Well, Liz,
Yes,
Liz got her two favorite topics in BRAC and state police. You didn't say Candelora yet.
Vinny!
Vinny. Up next, pancakes and beer. Why are we talking about this on Cap Report? Better question. Why not? We'll explain when we come back. Don't go away.
Vinny!
Vinny.
You get all three now.
Get all three. Well, when you think of breakfast foods, you don't usually think of beer and wine, of course, if you're me, as the choice of beverage to go along with it. But don't tell that to the owners of the Danbury IHOP. Goody Goody Gumdrops, the Danbury franchise on Newtown Road, is looking to become the first IHOP in Connecticut to offer alcohol. The city's zoning commission giving a thumbs up or a pancake up last Thursday evening, moving this a step forward to reality. The News-Times reports that the IHOP would only serve beer and wine. They hope to offer mimosas, sangria, and yes, beer. IHOPs in New York and California are already testing the liquor concept, guys, and assessing customer feedback. I mean, what are the customers going to say? We don't like having a mimosa with your
Bottomless
pancakes, guys?
mimosa for brunch?
Who doesn't like that? You know,
That's a good idea.
pour a beer over Rice Krispies, you get the snap, crackle, and a burp. Why not? Let's
Breakfast
go.
of champions, you know?
I don't know. I mean, a mimosa with your IHOP pancakes,
But every
a little
great-
silver
every great-
dollar.
Well, that's
Every
true, Tom.
top diner in the state of Connecticut has a full bar. You can
It
go there and
does.
get everything.
Yeah, it's
all right, guys.
building.
All right,
Let's
time to
do
say
it.
goodbye. Happy Easter.
Happy
Tuesday.
Easter, all.
On the air, the
Come on,
coach,
John.
Lizzie, Johnny Mac. I'm done.
Easter miracle, John.
you got
Easter miracle.
Oh, Easter miracles.
Christmas miracle, Joe.